Мені вимикати його потім, да? Ну, як коли будуть говорити. Немає різниці, так? Добрий день. Сьогодні ми
Good afternoon. Today we are starting the briefing about setting up checkpoints at the administrative border with the Crimea. Will the state fulfill its obligations? Thank you for this attention to this topic, and we thank Ukraine Crisis Media Center for this information platform where the position can be expressed by the interested parties. So this event was planned, and in the agenda, we plan to have the meetings with NGO, but before announcing of the event, the representatives of state structures expressed their wish to participate in this event. That's why we have changes in our agenda. We'll give the floor for the permanent representative of the President Borys and representative of the Ministry of Infrastructure, Kindrativ Vitaliy. So we are going to start with the results of monitoring that was held at checkpoints by our partners, Crimean group on the 12th and 20th of November, and I give the floor to Oleksandr Sedov, and also we will have the slides, and they show what is going on at the checkpoint. Good afternoon. As it was said, we carried out monitoring of 3 checkpoints at the administrative border with Crimea. It happened on the 12th and 13th of November. The goal was to see what was done after the last monitoring in February this year. So the organization of checkpoints, service zones, and CAPS, and also stops, parking places, and other equipment. So first monitoring was at Chengar checkpoint. It was carried out at 7 in the evening, so we had opportunity to assess the lighting, and lighting was absent. At the approach to Chengar checkpoint, there was no light, complete darkness, no changes observed. There is a tent, as previously, and it is not heated, it is cold inside. And in the tent, there are several kiosks for trade, and also the center where the healthcare worker should be, but he was absent at that moment. Also, in Chengar, there's a new point that provides, it sells railway and bus tickets, but this point was closed, as during previous monitoring. Toilets were closed also. And in the premise, there was a notice that the toilet, 3 hryvnias, and the keys are in the kiosks, and no one knows who takes this money for the toilet. No other major changes were recorded. About the roads at checkpoints, so we traveled from Nova Kakhovka, and Nova Alexeyevka to Chengar checkpoint route is in a satisfactory condition, and there are no ditches, so there were small repairs, and the road to Nova Alexeyevka from Kherson, for example, or from Nova Kakhovka to Nova Alexeyevka, this road is in bad condition. Next day we visited Cheplinka checkpoint. We started our work there. There are no changes, no structures, but there are some blocks, concrete blocks on the road, and 1 toilet in the step, but it was closed when we visited. The road from Cheplinka to the checkpoint is really bad. It needs repairs. Often we see ditches there, and then we travel to Kalinchak, what we saw. First, the road. We traveled from Chaplinka to Kalinchak checkpoint. The road is in terrible condition. It is not used for the transportation. So along this road there is a Dvudim railway station, and they plan to have railway transportation to Chaplinka, but this road is really bad. And about the checkpoint, the changes, there is a building. Previously there was cafe. Now that this is Kalinchak checkpoint station, inside there is place for 10 or 15 people, and this is the only building that has heating near the checkpoint. And also there is a parking lot for automobile transport, but according to the documents, the station and the plot is the property of is a private property, and these documents are that are provided by the ministry, they show that this is private property. One more change in Kalinchak checkpoint. So there is mobile point of national police, and this is a plus because previously there was a problem of checking the persons. If the person didn't have documents, they had to send for police, and now police is on site, and this resolves this problem. Also, people who pass there, they may address police in case of violations at the checkpoint. So at the moment when we visited checkpoint, police officers asked all people who passed, they asked the phone number, the passport, and we asked why they do so, and they said that they investigate a case and they try to find people who committed violations against territorial integrity of Ukraine, and they asked about phone numbers and documents and the status. They cannot consider all people who go from the occupied territory, they cannot consider them as suspects in the case against territorial integrity of Ukraine, and collection of personal information is voluntary. But police officers say that they should be provided with this information, and people, they go from the occupied territory. It is occupied by the police state. And if they do not obey, this can result in a fine in the occupied territory. So when they meet such a policeman, they provide all necessary information. And I would like to note and inform people who cross there that this is voluntary. If you do not have such a status, if you are not a witness, you are not a suspect in a criminal case, you may not provide your phone number and other information, and the threats are illegal, and demands to provide this personal information is illegal. So this police point and the automobile station, we didn't find any other changes at the checkpoint. So the results of monitoring, this one and previous one, it shows that there are no works to improve the checkpoints. At the moment, this work is not done. Thank you very much. And I would like to add several remarks on this. Previously, while preparing to this event, we sent requests to structures, to Kherson state administration, and it provided information that in order to support material and technical status at checkpoint, they carried out some repair of roads, but according to the results of monitoring, the state of roads didn't change. Also about this auto station, as representative of the group mentioned, there is information that is placed on the site of the ministry. It is stated that this is a private enterprise that owns this plot and informs the Ministry of Infrastructure that they placed this premise, Khersonska Oblast, Kherson, Simferopol, Kalanchak checkpoint. This is the address of the premise. So maybe there will be some arguments about this. Now I give the floor to the permanent representative of the President of Ukraine and Verkhovna Rada. So we thank for this organization of checkpoints. Unfortunately, requests were not sent to us. We would be able to provide information on this. And I would like to comment on the proposals that were provided. And I would like to start with the end about the equipment of this checkpoint. I absolutely agree that we should equip these checkpoints, and there should be tents that would protect people from weather conditions. And it is not stated here that we provide passes for people and lighting for checkpoints, and also possibly proper road markings for passengers and for vehicles. Also about medical workers. We raised this issue many times at the Committee of the Supreme Council, and the Verkhovna Rada addressed the Cabinet of Ministers on this, and we will resolve this issue in the framework of medical reform. So the conclusion of agreements with the doctors, family doctors, so people will be able to have this help at these premises. So we spoke with healthcare institution in Kherson. So there are separate issues, but this is not only about checkpoints. There is a big work ahead. So if there is a place for a doctor, it will be empty because there is no responsible person who takes responsibility in this. And we ask for medical kits there with minimum number of medicines there. In Chingar and Olga, we do not have this. So they just store spirits there instead of medicines. So heating points are really important, and also we should improve the service facilities, electricity, water well at the checkpoint should be. Also about the conditions of transportation of domestic animals, we resolved this issue at the legislative level. We adopted the act in the March this year, and if veterinary services abuse some rights, so there is the norm how to attend the Crimea with the domestic animals. Also, unregulated issue is the coffins and the transportation of coffins from Crimea. So we provided an algorithm how it can be done in the framework of current legislation. It's not so simple. We understand that the death of the person is a tragedy, nothing is good about it, and so this mechanism should work properly, and NGOs should help in this issue, because each year hundreds of coffins cross the line, and they all cross illegally. About coverage of the road, about the pavements. So the part that is from the station to college checkpoint is in a rather good condition. The problem starts from Vadik to Cheplinka, and people do not use this part of road. Illegal transport Santas go there, who goes seasonally from one checkpoint to another. About the transporters, we are glad that Khersonsk Oblast administration announced the contests for the routes between Kalanchak and Kherson, and I call on civil society to be really careful about it, because now legal transporters enter this area, and I understand that they should speak about regulation, but now there are contests, and this is in the competence of state administration. If this is about Kalanchak and Changar, the contest should be announced by Gnichitska administration. It is the regional route, and they lack several buses, and there are only taxis, and civil society should pay attention to this. And also about Changar situation, they sell tickets. We monitor the situation. They try to sell tickets for the direct routes from the occupied territories. And about Ukrzaliznytsia is ready to provide direct connection between Kiev and Vadim, but there should be transportation from Vadim, and also, and we demand this from the local party, that says Kalanchatsky region question. So we will be happy if you join us in this effort. So the representative office of the president wants to thank the ministry that national police were transferred from Simferopol to Kherson. They have 2 bases that they equip, and there are also they are not only in Kalanchak but also in Cheplinka and Changar. So all 3 have mobile cars equipped for personnel, and maybe you see in Kalanchak that they went to the field, but maybe the situation is different, because these are there are operative units, and there is patrol police from Crimea. The checkpoint is further on, so they have their base there. So about the centers of provision of administrative services, so we stated that these places should be in the closest settlements to the administrative line. And this Friday, the CASP will be open in Troitske. So also there is repair work in Novoalexeyevka. There will be CASP, and also we see 2 centers there, and closer to checkpoint there was plan by order 218. So there should be post offices and Changar community, village Changar. That should be the hub for these issues. Unfortunately, institutionally, they are not ready for this. We attend them often. We communicate with the bank, with post office, and also 4G at checkpoint is this issue now is under consideration. We know the owner of Kherson Obelenерgo, and about the banks, the position of the state bank is that they do not want to open the office in Chonga village. I'm not even saying about open them closer. So we should open it in Chonga or near the road. This will be okay. But here we should act together with the community, together with the bank, in order to resolve this issue. And also about Ukrposhta now proposes to establish the boxes near checkpoints. Maybe in the mobile settlement they can provide it. And for us, the most important is the main function of the ASP. This is the provision of passports, IDs, biometric passports provision. This is connected with security, with special connection where they photo people, and there should be people and material supplies. So the presence of such centers in the close proximity to checkpoint, this won't be coordinated with local administrations. So this issue is difficult. So the tax drivers they take 500 hryvnias for traveling to Kherson or to Vadim. So we need legal transportation in this area. I know that you have to leave. Thank you very much. So now we will give the floor to the lawyer from Crimean, Viktor Vuiko, lawyer of the Crimean reception hall, and he will tell us about why NGOs fight for the equipment of checkpoints and why for 2 years some decisions are taken and money is allocated, but in reality the results of monitoring show that there are no changes. Please, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for opportunity to speak on this important topic. It is important because recent monitoring is connected with the fact that we look not only with our own eyes, but also we may see the fate of money that were allocated by the Cabinet of Ministers for the checkpoints and service zones near these checkpoints. And about the story of this issue, this is the second monitoring visit. The first one was in February, and it was organized by the Ministry of Temporary Territories and IDPs. And my colleagues who are present here, they were part of this monitoring, and there were recommendations to improve the stay of our citizens at the checkpoints, and also about legislative changes connected with the opportunity in the future to get quality administrative services, and also changes of procedures of provision of those services that now are provided in the framework of our legislation, but they are not quick and of high quality. We are speaking about the provision of different state certificates, and we remember Resolution 1035 connected with the transportation of personal belongings, and this is also about the improvement of services in the future when near checkpoints centers for provision of administrative services will be created. And we got the letters from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Kherson administration and the State Border Service, and there it was stated that a working group was created, and a lot of executive bodies participated to equip those checkpoints. And these recommendations that we've sent, the recommendations of the working group, this was the basis for the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers that was adopted, and from the reserve fund, from the state budget, money was allocated, a lot of money was allocated. So my colleagues will tell you more about the fate of this money. It is not ambiguous, and the importance of provision of administrative services, it appeared in 2014, but the creation of centers near checkpoints, so these centers are really needed there. So there are a lot of requests from people who live in the occupied territories, and those requests that are addressed to me, that they may be satisfied if we place the centers near checkpoint. So this is about certificates of death and birth, and in recommendations we also raised the issue about introduction of changes concerning administrative procedure of establishment of such facts of death and birth, and this should be resolved by the civil registry office, and in the provision of the Cabinet of Ministers, it is stated that this is provided by the centers, and they broadened the services that can be provided by administrative services, but notary services are not provided in these centers because they should be provided by the notary in the notary office. So also notary may establish their office and near this center, and a person, when they will deal with some passport issues or some formalizing of death and birth certificates, these people may receive also notary services. They may, for example, establish the fact of the birth of a child through the court, and they may implement this decision. They may first register in the administrative service, and then they may apply for foreign passport, and all these issues may be resolved in one premise. A lot of time passed, and we see that, in principle, there are many issues that should be resolved. And about the security issue, so security starts where the border guard control finishes. So taking into account this idea that border guards, they should verify those people who crossed the line and to provide other formalities. So I believe that the placement should be closer. And the issue of security, it is not appropriate because the security starts when the person crosses customs and border control. And there is prosecutors and police, so we have all enforcement bodies. So people should be met not only by law enforcers but also by administrative centers. In this, people understand that the state really cares about them and about the quality of services that are provided. People travel to their relatives or to bring their personal belongings to the territory. So this security, it should be provided. People should see that this administrative services center are there, not only bodies of police and prosecutors' offices. So we state that this is an important issue, and it needs to be resolved in the sense that we have money and they should be invested according to their purpose, the purpose of the allocation. So I would like to ask you, what time is needed for the Crimeans to get administrative service? So from my practice, I see that administrative services are provided after some court proceedings. This is not administrative service, this is establishment of the fact of birth or death. This is a category that continues. So after a person resolves the issue through the court, if this is administrative procedure, this should be resolved by administrative service center, and there are draft laws how to transfer it into the administrative sphere. This will take time, and when these centers are open, so people won't need to go to Kherson court, for example, in order to first resolve the issue of establishment of the event of death or birth through the court. It won't be needed. So it depends on time. If you come in the morning, you will need 3 or 4 hours to stay in the queue, because in the morning, the civil registry officers start their work, and the passport issues and the submission of documents to get death and birth certificates. This takes time. I cannot tell you, so it depends on your luck, actually. I know that in the territory of Khersonshina, it is faster because there are more Crimeans, and in Kiev, the term of getting administrative services and establishment of acts of death and birth, it takes from 1 week to a month, and a person should be in the territory under control of Ukraine during this time. So we have 2 more speakers and 1 more question about notary services. According to legislation, if a person is under 16, and I disagree with this norm, and if a person does not have permission of the parent, they cannot cross. So this issue, they demand notary certificate, so that this person, if he is under 16, cannot travel through this crossing line. So it refers to the state border, and this is not a state border, this is administrative border. So notary services are really needed there. If, for example, a father or a mother comes with a child to they need both parents now, and only then, for example, a mother can travel with her child through this line. So people address for consultations to me about this issue, because this is of importance for them. I give the floor to Tamila Tasheva. She is the head of the chairman of the board of NGO Crimea SOS. So what about the money that was allocated and the response of the state bodies on the requests of NGOs? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to comment on the speech of Borys Babin, and we see that there is no balance in the decisions and actions of the state bodies. Borys Babin represents the president of Ukraine. So this decision of allocation of 106 million of hryvnias, this decision was taken by Ukrainian government. This is a balanced decision that took into account the opinion of the public. We see how one branch of power and one representative from one branch and one representative branch, I see that they do not communicate between themselves. And I, as a representative of civil society, for me it is really painful, because this influences people who live in occupied territories, and they travel each day across this, they cross this administrative border. And in these 5 years after annexation of Crimea, they do not have quality services that should be provided to them. The first thing I would like to say is that Stepan Ivanovich Kubiv, this is first vice premier of Ukraine, and together with the Minister of Occupied Territories, he did really a lot for allocation of this money. And Mr. Groisman, who is the head of the government, they should pay more attention to the fact that why decision of Ukrainian government is not implemented. And I would like to speak about it in more detail. The decision of the government provided about 106 million hryvnias for construction of temporary entry-exit checkpoints for traveling to occupied territory of Crimea, Kalanchak-Chengar route, and for the development of project documentation, 1,990,000, about 2 million hryvnias. This was the resolution of the government, and I would like to say that they allocated from the reserve about 106 million hryvnias, and this should be used until end of 28. So the equipment of checkpoints should improve, and in the territory of checkpoints there should be centers of provision of administrative services, notary offices. My colleagues told you about it. And also the project documentation for the construction of temporary checkpoints. This documentation is not developed, and we've sent 3 requests, one in September, 2 in November at the beginning of the month. And so for those who developed this documentation and that are responsible for Kalanchak checkpoint and Chengar, this is Ukrainian state enterprise Ukrinterafta service. This is subordinated to the Ministry of Infrastructure. And in response, we got information that this documentation was not developed and the works are not done, and the copies of project documents cannot be provided. Moreover, they said that the current account, that the money was not sent from the treasury to them. So it is difficult to develop project documentation and to implement some actions without money that should be sent to the account of the enterprise. So we are waiting the end of the year. We count the days. We have only 2 months till the end of the year, and it provides doubts about the elaboration of this documentation and the completion of works until 2018. And the representatives of Ministry of Infrastructure informed us that until end of November or the start of December, it is planned to complete the construction at checkpoints. And until 25th of December 2018, the Ministry of Infrastructure should provide the report about the completion of works and about the use of this money that were allocated from the budget. And I won't go into detail about the monitoring because my colleagues told you about this. Also, it is important to say about the completion of works. They are planned to be made according to the roadmap for the construction of infrastructure objects at the Kalanchak checkpoint and Chengar checkpoint. So this roadmap is developed in 2017, but the text is not known because the Ministry of Infrastructure decided that some issues that are included into the documents, into the document of this roadmap concerning project documentation and development. To create the service areas, so they include some service information, and they are provided with secrecy status, and we do not know what is in this roadmap. And civil society does not know about this, and people also wait for the resolution of the issues at the checkpoints, and they do not know this information. So according to information provided by Kherson State Global Administration, plots were allocated to implement this plan. So the land plot was allocated, and these checkpoints should be equipped and the centers of administrative services should be provided. With the NGOs, we've prepared the request, the address with information that you have, dear journalists, about recommendations. And I would like to say that Borys Babin added a lot of points, and we've discussed these points a lot about the crossing with animals and also transportation of coffins or the remains. But we didn't include them into recommendations because they relate to the equipment of the checkpoints and the opening of the centers of administrative services. So I had the feeling today that we were a little bit punished for this, that we do not pay attention to some important issues. But of course we pay attention to them. We speak with the governmental bodies about it. We communicate and we try to promote these issues and to resolve them at the legislative level. But this was not the aim of today's event, to speak about all the problems that exist. And this was not the aim to make them public in these recommendations. That's why in our letter to state bodies of power, we stress once again that we demand implementation of the decision of the government by which 106 million hryvnias were allocated for the equipment of this checkpoint, because we are afraid that if this money is not used now, this money will return to the state budget. And those positive norms that were adopted by the government, these were the promises of the Vice Premier Minister Stepan Ivanovich Kubiv and by our Prime Minister Vladimir Groisman. This is their face. This is their obligation before those people who live in the occupied territory. That's why I think that Vladimir Groisman and Stepan Kubiv, who have direct relation to the lobbying of this issue, they should strictly demand from all responsible bodies who deal with this issue. And this request of public organization, we will send this document to you. Maybe they can be printed out and disseminated among mass media outlets. So thank you. Everyone expressed their position. So this address is prepared and it will be placed on official sites of NGOs who are co-organizers of this event. That's why you may find these documents online. So we put on the screen the answers. So these are official answers, and we may provide these answers to you of the state enterprises that is responsible for the development of documentation. Also, I would like to add to what was said. Khersonsk State Oblast Administration informed that for implementation of the plan of this roadmap, they decided the issue concerning land documents, and now they provided the land plot for the use to this enterprise for placement of service zones and administrative services centers. So now I give the floor. So about the position of the ministry, Kindrativ Vitaliy, General Director of the Directorate of Strategic Planning and Coordination of the State Policy in the sphere of transport of the Ministry of Infrastructure of Ukraine. You're given the floor. 10 minutes, please. I will be able to say everything during 5 minutes, actually. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We thank NGOs for this attention to this problem, and we thank the media who are interested in this topic, how this is implemented. In July, the issue was resolved to provide money for the construction of checkpoints, Kalanchak and Chingar checkpoints. These are important issues that should be resolved, and proper conditions should be created for provision of quality services for our citizens who return from the temporarily occupied territory. Unfortunately, when this provision was taken, land issues were not regulated. There were some issues with Crimean channel because this is other lands of water enterprise, and land issues took a lot of time. Now these issues are resolved. As of today, the agreement is signed because after service enterprise, that is the who orders this, and the enterprise that developed the project documentation and project solutions for the implementation of this project of equipping checkpoints. So now we are in active phase. Now we see properly the situation concerning the service zones. So these will be light structures. We have analogy with the military project, so we implement all the measures in order to implement this project timely. And there were some delays concerning land issues, unfortunately. And as of today, everything that should be included is included, and everything is working, and we plan to do everything properly. Tell us the date when checkpoints are equipped. They will be equipped according to the decisions. Everything will be made. When, I ask? I understand, but you are the representative of the ministry, and questions will emerge. So your presence is valuable here because you may tell us when these checkpoints be equipped. We won't leave until you say. So if we wait, this won't be implemented. We should work on site. Look, we are waiting that in the nearest future we will get this documentation, and then the project will be implemented. When SBU Institute will provide this project documentation, works will start. Not much time is needed for this. Everything will be done. The question is technical details, but everything will be done. Okay. So this is the opposition of different positions, but we see that this is dated in November before the event. They say that this documentation is not done, so it is not developed. It is underdeveloping. It is in progress. And on the 13th, they got the data on geodesy and geodetic survey. So they have all necessary data about electricity, communication, everything that is needed. So I have a question to you. Tamila said about concerns of civil society that this money will be returned to the budget. So this enterprise said that they didn't get this 106 million on their account. So if this money is not used, what will happen to it? Will they return to the budget or they go for the next year? I'm not a great specialist in budget legislation. I know for sure that this money may appear on the account when the project documentation is ready, because now they get the money for the documentation, and those money that will be provided further, they are on a single treasury account, and they will be provided when the documents are ready. So all the documents, all the works will be done, and all the movements, all the transfers of money will be done in the framework of legislation, so there are no doubts about it. But now we face such a situation. When this documentation is finished, so this development of documentation became possible only after we were provided with land plots. Also about auto station that belongs to private enterprise. So they signed a contract in August 2018. So this was at Kalinchak checkpoint, and our previous speaker told us about this automobile station. So it is difficult to start construction, but parallel, we see that preferences given to some private structure that put automobile station there, and they inform you directly about this. They put automobile station there. I understand your question. So this procedure of opening of automobile station, the enterprise should complete and meet some requirements, and should inform the ministry, and we put them into our register. This provision was adopted at the beginning of this year, the provision that regulates auto transportation. We do not know from where they get this land, but they sent and informed us about this, and this was done in the framework of legislation. So it brings me to another issue. So the was a request of the citizen to the ministry for provision of information about this roadmap, and there was a reply that checkpoint is a strategic object, and in order to prevent different actions and for provision of security, the step-by-step plan cannot be made public. And so the situation is, from one side, this is a regime object, and from the other side, information is absent about what will be placed there. And at the same time, private firm places its automobile station near it. Why the attitude is so different? And tell us about the step-by-step plan, and whether the public will get opportunity to know about it. So it has a secret badge, so the designers have access. So this is the Institute of SPU, and people who deal with this issue, and I believe that this is normal. Look, from one side, civil society is interested in this, and let's divide these issues: checkpoints and service area. Checkpoint is a point where they check people, and it is at the line near the aggressor. So there are customs and border guards, and this information, I believe, should not be open. This is the issue of state bodies. And about the service area, according to the norms, it is not less than 100 meters from the regime zone. There will be mobile houses, there will be auto station and service zone, and so on and so forth. Other objects will be placed. So information about this service area may be provided, right? What information about these service areas is needed? What will be placed there? So so 3 modules, more than 300 meters each, so about 1,000 on the whole. The building of auto station premises for route bus drivers, and a place for the administrative services center. So we have technical task, terms of reference, and recommendations that were provided. So there is a number of issues that should be resolved in these areas. Today we have terms of reference we just provided, and who will service this issue? Who will serve them? Ministry of Infrastructure build them. We build checkpoints and service area, and also there will be issue who will use them. So checkpoint, this will be used by border guards and customs, and service zone, after service may use it, or Kherson administration or other entities. Thank you very much. We don't have time for questions. Thank you.